This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. You are listening to episode 7 of the Dreamcast Junkyard Dream Pod. My name is Tom, and I'm joined as ever by my team of extremely knowledgeable, handsome, fine and upstanding members of the Dreamcast Junkyard staff. We have Caleb.
Hello.
Gaz, aka Lost Ruin.
Good evening, folks.
Rob.
Hey.
And we have joining us Alexander, who is known on the site as B-Sharp Major General.
Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever it is, whatever time it is where you are. We do have a new member of the team. His name is Scott, and he writes on the site as Doc Eggfan. If you're a fan of the Dreamcast Junkyard main site, you may have seen a couple of his, or 3 of his articles so far, talking about the Dreamcast internal components that were used, not in Dreamcast systems, but as parts for arcade machines, such as Naomi, her GD-ROM drives. I thought they were fantastic articles. He asked to write them as a guest. I thought they were that good, I thought I'd get him to sign up as part of the staff. So thanks to him. He's not here today because he's in Australia and time differences are so weirdly bizarre that it's like 3 in the where he is.
It's no excuses. It will get him on soon, folks.
We will get him on soon, yeah, but I just wanted to introduce him and let everybody know that we do have a new member of the team. And also, Aaron's not here because he's got more important things to be doing.
How dare he?
But yeah, guys, thanks for joining. And I just thought I'd go around and see what everybody's been playing or what you've purchased in the last couple of weeks. We'll start with you, Xander. What have you done or been playing? Or
Well, I hate to admit it, but I haven't actually been playing any Dreamcast games lately. I've developed somewhat of a habit of playing Minecraft for several hours at a time.
Yes, I can understand that.
Yeah. As far as game purchases, just a few days ago I got a copy of Max Payne for PS2, but nothing Dreamcast related.
Well, it's kind of Dreamcast related because there was a rumour to be a version of Max Payne for the Dreamcast in development, so it's very tenuously linked, but cool. How about you, Caleb?
I have been on eBay, and boy, the Japanese games, it's very, very difficult to get them nowadays. Back in the day, when I'm talking about 2005 or 2007, you could get stuff for cheap. No longer. Now I'm basically just looking around trying to see if I can get a arcade stick or, I was just trying to look at any number of shooting, Shumps, however you pronounce that, I'm not sure. Shmups. I always get that wrong. Anyways, but yeah, it's this thing on eBay now where it's like, got a ton of people watching the items and they just go up in price very, very quickly. Yeah. So I have not been able to really get anything on eBay concerning Dreamcast stuff. And unfortunately, in the area that I'm in now, garage sales and whatnot, not a lot of Dreamcast stuff at all.
Yeah.
So I have come up dry. I've just been playing some, indie stuff on the Dreamcast. I was playing the Gianna Sisters game where you basically, the second level is like the ice level.
Okay.
There's a big, huge bird as the boss in the first level, which is really cool. That's a kind of a floaty Mario-style 2D game. And yes, that's basically been it for Dreamcast. And I've been playing for other games outside the Dreamcast, I've been messing around a lot with the mod for Fallout New Vegas called Dust. And that is an amazing mod. I cannot believe one person primarily did that. They replaced basically everything and made the Mojave Desert in that game into a true wasteland. It's very amazing. Anybody who likes Fallout, I suggest that they go check that out. Oh, and I know I've been talking for a while, but I want to make one last thing. It's like, oh my god, back in the days of Half-Life, mods were so easy because every single one of them came with a little README file that explained exactly how to use it. And now old man Caleb goes to mod, Fallout New Vegas in 2015, And there's no instructions anywhere. Like, people just assume you're going to use the modding software. Now, modding New Vegas is actually, if not more simple than modding Half-Life, it's very simple, but there's no instructions. I mean, they have loads of information describing what the mod is, but zero, not even one paragraph describing how to set it up, even though it's a simple thing. Like, how are little kids supposed to learn how to do this now? If you go on these sites, like Nexus, and there's no actual, like, helpful little thing saying to set this up, do this.
Well, I'm pretty certain little kids should not be playing Fallout anyway.
Well, I'm talking about like 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, whatnot.
Even they shouldn't be playing Fallout.
I think they assume sort of prior knowledge and that you are something of an expert when it comes to this kind of thing, maybe. I don't know.
I know, but it's just strange because, with the Half-Life scene, back when I was younger, like, every game, every mod came with a README file, which explained in detail how to do it. And now it's like just people assume that you're going to use the software that does it all for you, and so you don't actually know how to implement a mod. You're just using the software, and thus the mods don't have any information on how to set them up. It's very interesting. The same thing with Dreamcast stuff. If anybody who's listening to this podcast is considering going into like indie stuff or downloading, all the cool little mods on different games or whatnot, just be careful. Just inform yourself. There's a lot of bloatware. There's a lot of pop-ups. So just be aware that it is kind of a pain nowadays to do that. Where it actually was it was kind of bad back in the day, but it's not as bad as it is now. So
yeah, I agree. Cool, thanks, Caleb.
And that's my rant for the month. Thank you.
Excellent. How about you guys? What have you been doing?
Buying some more Resident Evil games.
Okay.
From Japan.
Ooh. What do you have?
Biohazard 2 and 3 on the PlayStation 1. I'm going to order Biohazard 2 and 3 for the Dreamcast from my contact in Japan, so that'll be with me shortly.
Will that be the sort of the value pack version? Is it for the Dreamcast?
I think so. Yeah, I just asked for standard copies for this at this moment while I just pay off a few bills. Must mention as well. Last podcast I did, I was probably a little bit amateurish because I lost a fluffy bit off the end of my microphone. And it just kind of threw me a bit. Luckily, I found it, folks, so you can expect a more professional and polished me this episode. So,
that's good. That's good to know. Okay, that's great. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, I'm so glad I found it. Yes, anyway.
I have a pop filter myself, but it doesn't work if you yell like I do, so I'll still get popped probably, even with the filter.
Yeah, there have been times when my headphones have literally been on the verge of exploding.
But yeah, I think that's it. Just the usual stuff. Been playing Destiny, and yeah, that's about it.
Excellent. Moving on. How about you, Rob? Anything to report?
Yeah. I've actually got to play quite a bit this week after the week before not being able to play much. Dreamcast. I got some Worms World Party on the go. I still think that's a really nice port of Worms. If the only thing that I complain about is that the rumble feature is just like ridiculously over intense. So literally every weapon, it doesn't matter how big the explosion, if you're using a shotgun or if you're, using a super sheep or something, it just rumbles the hell out of the controller repeatedly, and it can get a bit tiresome if you're in a long game.
Yeah, I like the art style in Worms World Party. It's a lot nicer looking than Worms Armageddon, I find.
It is. It's a lot cleaner than Armageddon. People love Armageddon because it was just so ridiculously crazy, and they introduced so many crazy weapons, and they are super. But I think they took a step back in terms of the armory and in terms of the art style with Worms World Party, and it just works. The other game I decided to boot up was Soldier of Fortune, which I'm sure quite a lot of people know. I mean, it's from Raven, the guys who did Hexen back in the day, and Wolfenstein. Not the most recent Wolfenstein. It was released in, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Can you remember?
Was it Return? Well, the most recent Wolfenstein, is done by Bethesda now, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's one in between. Is it Wolfenstein? Yeah, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, the one where you can go back in time, or whatever it is.
That one, yeah, I think it's that one, yeah, the one in between. And, say what you want about Raven, people always moan that, they just produce these dumb shooters and it's the same game every time. But hell, it's, super violent and, just I mean, the load times on Soldier of Fortune on the Dreamcast are appalling.
Yeah, they are.
Let's be honest, they're absolutely appalling. But as soon as it boots in and you're there and you've got that massive shotgun and just the sound of it every time you let it off. And obviously, Soldier of Fortune is famous for all the dismemberment, so it's crazy. You know, just the sound of the shotgun going off. I think it's probably the closest to like the Quake and Doom shotgun. You know, the satisfaction you get when you wield that.
Yeah, I believe the word is beefy. It's a real beefy sounding gun. It's really good. Now, are you playing with mouse and keyboard, or are you playing with standard controller?
No, standard controller. And yeah, I mean, I've played it before, so I didn't really have to relearn the controls. Obviously, it's not ideal. Mouse and keyboard would be so much better, but it's fine. It's fine. I can get through it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things sort of assigned to the D-pad and different combinations of buttons in there.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. That's right. So yeah, that's it on the Dreamcast. Interestingly, Caleb mentioned Fallout. You know, I heard the next Fallout was coming down the pipe, and so I decided to boot up Fallout 2, which is my favourite of the series. What a fantastic game.
It's amazing.
Talking of New Vegas, I mean, it's Chris Avallone. It's the same guy who was one of the head designers on Fallout 2, and I love New Vegas and I love Fallout 2. They're both great games. So I've been playing a bit of that. And last thing, non-Dreamcast, Witcher 3. What an RPG. I'm not going to go into it anymore, but it's absolutely fabulous. And last thing, pickups. It's not technically picked up yet, but hopefully it'll be picked up because I'm currently in an eBay bidding war. But I'm trying to get Shikigami no Shiro 2 for the Dreamcast, which is this ace sort of gothic shmup, vertical shooter.
Yeah.
And if I get it, then that's going to make my week.
I think that might be the one where the guy throws playing cards. I'm not quite sure.
I'm not sure either. I know there's multiple characters, and it's very famous in Japan. But it's completely odd. The art style. What does it remind me of? It's a bit like Castlevania art style, from what I can see. And it seems to be something unique in terms of the shmup genre, because normally with shmups, you know, you're basically in a spaceship or a fighter jet or something, and here you're playing actual individual characters who can fly and have these magic powers. It's called in Japanese, it's Shikigami no Shiro 2, which means Castle Shikigami 2. So it's the sequel to the first.
Of course, as we all know, because we're all experts here, the original ones that came over here and were ported for the PlayStation and PlayStation 2 were awful ports in terms of translation, in terms of everything. So if the ports, and I don't believe that was the exact game that came over for the PlayStation 1, I believe it was one of the earlier ones, but horrible ports for the PlayStation 2 in that game series. But I do have the Dreamcast one that I believe is the one that you're going to be getting, and it's really good. I spent a lot of time on it.
Super.
Nice one. I've picked up a couple of things this week. I picked up an official steering wheel for the Dreamcast, which I'm happy to report is actually really good, even though it doesn't have any pedals. It does have a port on the back of it, which you would think would allow for pedals, but apparently there was never any pedals released for it.
Wow, that's something I don't know about. Now, I have the Mad Catz one that does have the pedals, but I was not aware that there was an official one released in the US. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I was only aware of the Mad Catz
official one that was released in the UK and Japan, which is called the official Dreamcast race controller, was actually released in the US by AgeTech as the rally controller. Because for whatever reason, Sega decided they didn't want to release it themselves, so they gave it to AgeTech to release. So there was that. There's a guy on the Facebook page called Martin K, who is very talented. He does a lot of graphic design work, and he creates, unreleased Dreamcast games. He sells them through his website and through Facebook, and he does he makes mock-up covers and sort of CD printed designs that go onto the CD. And he sent me a load of games that are in Blu-ray cases with little booklets that he designed as well. And they're all self-booting discs. He sent me Quake, Half-Life, Propeller Arena, a homebrew game called Neverball, which is a bit like Super Monkey Ball, and Under Defeat, which obviously is a bootleg, but it's very nice. It looks really good, in a Blu-ray case, and they actually look quite similar to Blu-ray films,
Yeah, I've got to say, I hadn't seen those, though. I hadn't seen Dreamcast bootlegs being delivered in Blu-ray cases, but I tell you, with the Blu-ray case with the blue, just with the Sega blue, in mind, and then the actual printed artwork on the discs, They look
They
pretty
do look
sweet.
really good, and also the way that he's done them on sort of black discs. I don't know if he's trying to mimic the PS1 discs, but they are really good. Look, they look really good. So yeah, thank you to Martin. That's Martin K for those. He sent them to me out of the blue. He just asked me for my address on Facebook and said, I'm going to send you something. And then a couple of weeks ago,
Nice.
a couple of days later, these turned up in the post. So massive thanks to him for that.
I see he does post on the forum.
He does, yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah,
Or say the forum. Is it under the name Dreamcast Martin Gay?
Yeah.
Gives it away, doesn't it, really?
Now, Tom, you will have to let me know with Quake. Back in 2000 and whatever, when I was doing it, there was 2 mods. Now, one will let you have the original Quake music and everything, but it didn't have mouse and keyboard support. And there was another one that did have mouse and keyboard support, but I believe it was either the music or the graphics aren't as good. So it'd be interesting to find out if there's now like a new Dreamcast version of Quake that gives you everything. That would be awesome. Because back in the day, that was impossible. You could only have one or the other. So just when you're firing that up and messing around with it, let me know about that.
It might be the same version of Quake as the one I've already got, which the one I've already got is just on a burnt CDR, and it doesn't have any music. So I'm thinking it might be the same one. But that's an interesting point. I will have a look into that. Interesting. One other thing I've been playing around with is Neo Drift Out, which is a Neo Geo game, a rally game, top-down rally game. I've been playing that through the SD card reader and Dream Shell. And I mean, I quite like rally games of any description, but this one is quite similar to Power Drive Rally, which is one of my favourite games on the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is that's so much better than that could ever hope to be.
Now, is there any slowdown with that?
No,
or is it?
It's actually. I mean, I've never played the original one, so I can't say how good it is. But as far as I can see, there's no slowdown, and it uses the Neo for All.
Yeah, Neo 4,
Nice.
yeah. I know about it. I think they're all ripped from the Neo Geo CD
Yeah,
versions.
yeah.
Or I'm going to guess, because obviously taking things out of the MVS or AS carts would be quite tricky. But I think, yeah, I imagine that. I don't know what the specs are on the Neo Geo CD, but I imagine that, well, it's released before the Dreamcast, so I imagine that most of the titles could move over. Because I've heard of that. Aren't there some Samurai... Neo for All do some of the Samurai Showdown games on Dreamcast as
you
well,
can
don't
get
they?
pretty much any game on the Neo Geo CD, and you can play it on the Dreamcast using Neo for All.
That's awesome.
Again, that is definitely something I'm going to have to check out because, again, I have the old version of the Metal Slug 3, I believe. Metal Slug 2 and 1, actually. Yeah, and it's like it's so good, but there was a little bit of slowdown. I'm wondering if that was improved with later versions.
Very possibly, yeah. There's been multiple releases of Neo for All, especially on the Dreamcast. So and the games I've played have all been pretty spot on as far as I can tell. So yeah, that's been my experience since we last convened.
Awesome.
So we'll move on now to our first point of discussion, and this is something that it means something to me because I've recently bought a new Dreamcast console, and this gentleman's face is plastered all over the box, and the person in question is Mr. Sega himself, Mr. Yukawa.
本当にドリームキャストのことを考えるなら300万ポリゴンの究極の画像インターネット通信ゲーム対戦そういうことを伝えなくていいのかわしは間違っとるか売れるのかドリームキャストは対策はあるのかあるって聞いたよ
Yukawa, he was managing director of Sega essentially when the Dreamcast was put to market, and obviously when the Dreamcast failed. So he became a very well-known figure though in Japan, essentially because he undertook a series of adverts where he himself starred in the adverts. And to be fair to him, as a business guy, I've seen the adverts. I think other people, we've seen them. He's pretty good in them, and the Japanese clearly thought so because he went down a storm, so it goes, and they kept commissioning more adverts with him in. And this is the managing director. This is a suit. This is the head suit of Sega, and here he is appearing in a series of comedic, sort of self-deprecating adverts selling the Dreamcast. And the adverts, they're crazy, you know. They involve like you know, one of the first ones is, you know, there's children essentially bad mouthing Sega and going, oh, you know, Sega, they're awful. It's all about Sony now. Yeah, with the PlayStation, it's going to be great. And you've got Yukawa looking absolutely shocked. He's overheard these children talking, and he's like, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe that, you know, the once mighty Sega is now being overtaken. And he just brings a lot of comedy to a series of adverts selling the Dreamcast. As I said, that he got so famous that they ended up doing I suppose you would call it a special edition, even though I don't think there's anything different with the hardware, but the box that the console comes in has a famous picture on the front of Yukawa sort of turning to listen to these children bad-mouthing Sega and looking shocked. And then on the back there's a series of shots of him from the adverts in various different states of joy or misery or just being plain crazy.
Yeah, it's so interesting that they got somebody from actual, you know, the board, as it were, to be involved in the advertising and actually did it so well. Even when, you know, if you look at the Dreamcast Express demo disc, on one of them, there's actually a behind the scenes section where it shows him, you know, making one of these adverts. And it's just really cool to be able to have that, be privy to that, you know.
I think that was it. It was like this personal relationship was suddenly created between Yukawa and at least the Japanese public. It didn't go any further, but he had genuine charisma. Like a couple of people have mentioned this recently on the Dreamcast Junkyard Facebook page, and somebody mentioned that it was a bit similar to Reggie at Nintendo, and I'd say it probably is, but Reggie doesn't have it, you know.
I don't think it would have worked, you know, in a similar series of like Western adverts, just because it would have been a bit cringeworthy if they tried to maybe take that formula and put it into a Western campaign, because I just don't think it would have worked.
I agree. I don't think they could have moved it, and I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, one of my favourite bits in one of the adverts is you've literally got Yukawa pulling a rickshaw stuffed full of Dreamcasts round, I presume, Tokyo, and it's just going, would you like a Dreamcast? Would you like a Dreamcast? And then you've got various young, you know, hip young Japanese people coming up to him and going, oh, we love you, Yukawa, sure, we'll buy a Dreamcast. And, you know, it's a curioso, but again, considering the fate of Sega, it sort of takes on an extra dimension, doesn't it, really?
Well, he went on to appear in a game, didn't he?
He's in Shenmue
as well.
Yeah.
Well, in his own game, it was Yukawa's Treasure Hunt. I'm just looking at it now. It was released in Japan.
Yeah. It wasn't just that one. It was he was in a Sonic Adventure download as well, where you could basically download this thing to your this file to your VMU, and then start the game, and then it would give you the option to play this mini game where you would run around the different stages collecting cards with Yukawa's face on them. And if you did it in a certain time and won the competition, you could apply for a gift card that was redeemable in certain Japanese stores. So, you know, he was quite the celebrity during this campaign, in Japan at least. Caleb, you've got one of these consoles, haven't you, as well?
Yes, I do.
These Yukawa Circles, yeah. When mine came in the post, when I opened the box, it was practically brand new, but it was quite yellowed. And so I did my unyellowing technique on it, as we spoke about in the last episode. And when I opened it, I found that the hardware and the heat sinks and everything inside were quite similar to the more recent European Dreamcasts, with basically the...
Oh, really?
For some reason, I always thought that the Yukawa Dreamcasts were the really early launch ones, but the one that I have that isn't a Yukawa one has got the thing with it's got the inert gas piping inside, but the Yukawa one doesn't, so I'm guessing that's a later one.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. I think the Kara ones come slightly later. The real early ones, the Dreamcasts that will fetch a lot of money, are those ones that everyone says are liquid cooled, even though they're not liquid cooled. They're basically the ones without a fan. I forget the code. There's if you can look it up online. There's a specific code, and you can check it out on your Dreamcast, and that'll tell you if it's one of the first.
To be honest, there's even another one sandwiched in between them, because there's the very first Japanese one that doesn't have a modem. I think they're known as a grey Dreamcast. And then there's the one in between, which is the one I've got, which has got the ridiculous heat sinks inside. And then there's the Yukawa one, which is basically the same as a later European one or an American one inside with, it's not got the piping or anything like that. It's just literally got the thermal paste and then the big heatsink portion that's underneath where the GD-ROM drive sits. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting for Dreamcast geeks like us.
I suppose that's the thing. Can I ask you guys? I mean, you don't have to give me absolute specifics, but did you pay a premium for this Yukawa edition?
I certainly did not. I paid. I believe this was how many years ago I got this? It was probably about 4 years ago, and I got it for very, very cheap.
Yeah, likewise. I got mine, like I say, maybe about 2 weeks ago, and it cost me £60.
Oh my god! Does that include shipping?
£15 shipping, so 75 in total.
You get.
Man. I feel so good now.
How much was yours, Caleb?
It was under. It was around 60 included.
Wow.
60 American including shipping.
It was
a lot cheaper.
That's cheap.
Yeah, about 40 quid. Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, I think that's it, really. I think the price is sort of reflected. It's sort of about, if you were to go on eBay and go, I just want to buy a decent condition box Dreamcast or a decent condition box Yukawa box Dreamcast, they're going to be kind of the same price, right?
Yeah, I'm looking now. You're looking at you're talking between 75 to 80 quid.
Yeah.
But the shipping is more than the console from Japan.
I'm sure. Because it is just the box. It's just the box. But
the console itself is, the cheapest one I can see is £28.90. And that's for you get the box, the controller. It looks really cool. You get games of it as well. The shipping is 47 quid.
I'm just going back to Mr. Yukawa himself. The one thing we've not mentioned is the fact that he appears in What's Shenmue, the demo, where you can chase him around Wii. You know the famous image, computer-generated image of him holding his head with the Dreamcast in the background. Well, that comes from that demo.
Yeah.
So.
Hang on a sec. Carry on.
Does she want to make a comment about Mr. Yukawa or no? Okay.
No, obviously not. No, sorry, someone stole someone's pillow, and that was
so,
it.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty much an icon of the Dreamcast in Japan, and it's interesting that. Obviously, as Dreamcast fans ourselves, we know who this gentleman is and was. But to the vast majority of people, if you showed them a picture, they wouldn't know who he was and what his importance was. It's quite interesting.
Apparently, too, he's in the actual Shenmue release. Though I think in the US release, he's just kind of there and there's no interaction. But he's in the game in the Japanese version, and you can have a little interaction with him where he runs away.
Was he removed from the PAL version as well? I believe his sort of whole inclusion was removed because no one would know who he was.
I was always under the impression I've seen it. He's in the Japanese version, and he talks. I don't know.
I need to go and play it again now. Ugh. Find if he's there.
Here's the horrible thing. I've never sat down and just played Shenmue, and I really need to do that because I have the HD connection now. So I got no excuse. I should just sit down and do it.
Just looking on eBay as well, there's another interesting item. It says the Dreamcast. You get a CD of the Dreamcast campaign song featuring Yukawa.
Excellent. So that's Mr. Yukawa. Speaking of famous or influential Sega-related people, I did tweet several times at Mr. Peter Moore, asking him if he would be interested in appearing on the Dreamcast Junkyard Dream Pod. I've had no response yet. I wasn't expecting one, but I will continue my assault on his Twitter account. He works for EA, and it's E3 this week or next week. So, I'm sure he's quite busy, but he seems to be quite passionate about the Dreamcast and also putting people straight when they say that, he's the asshole who didn't release Shenmue. So I would have thought that he'd jump at the chance of being involved in a Dreamcast-related podcast. So we'll see how that goes.
He can defend his honor.
Exactly. That's my angle. That's what I'm going for. Peter Moore, if you're listening to this, get on this podcast. We want to ask you some questions. Moving away from software-based stuff, I think the next thing we're going to talk about is more hardware.
This is regarding the Dreamcast controller. And when it was originally released, there were a lot of complaints about it, and I never understood those complaints. I always loved the thing. People said like the little nubs would hurt their thumb. It never happened for me. It was good. It's amazing for some game. It's very clunky for some games, but for other games, it's very good. And the other point is, I've never had one break down on me, and I've had every other single controller I've ever owned break down on me. But the official Dreamcast controller has never broke down and never lost any functionality. Any of the ones I've ever owned. And I talked briefly to a guy who said he was one of the original ones, who was saying that he was testing the original versions, and he was always saying that the little stick would break and everything. Has anybody had a different experience?
In terms of reliability, no. But in terms of aesthetics, then there is problems with it.
I would say the Dreamcast controller is probably, as far as my experience goes with it, it's amazing for games like Resident Evil, and you're getting the Resident Evil games, so I'm a little bit, don't you think with games like that it works perfectly?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. But I prefer other controllers. I'll for one, for like first-person shooters, you need twin sticks. That's a problem.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing: on the Dreamcast, though, you have mouse and keyboard, which is superior to any controller.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I was never a PC gamer. It was always twin sticks for me. And
No. The mouse and keyboard, when it first came into the thing, the whole Unreal Tournament thing, when people were doing keyboard and mouse versus controller, everybody kind of found out that mouse and keyboard actually works superior. Mouse and keyboard isn't a PC thing. It can be considered a Dreamcast thing.
But it is a PC thing, let's be honest. It's always been a PC thing, mouse and keyboard. You don't see anyone with a controller playing a PC game, especially a shooter.
What? I do that.
For me, the Dreamcast controller, I've never had a problem with it. I think it's a great controller. A lot of people lay criticism at the D-pad and say that it's not good for 2D fighters. I'm not a massive expert when it comes to 2D fighters, even though I own quite a few of them, but I've never, ever had a problem executing any moves in any 2D fighters using that D-pad. I think it's fine. The one criticism I do have with the Dreamcast controller, looking back at it, from a 2015 point of view, is that the analog controllers, the triggers, do have quite a long travel distance. So when you're playing a racing game, for example, on a PS4, you only have to lightly touch the shoulder buttons, and then it's good enough to register how the pressure sensitiveness. Obviously, it's to do with technology that was available at the time, and I can't really knock it for that. But that's the one thing that really kind of irks me.
It needed a twin stick like the original PlayStation controller when the DualShock came out. And the other thing that's wrong with it is the wire's in the wrong place. It's at the bottom.
That's true, yeah, because you have to bend it around, don't you? And stick it into that little clip.
That's the only other criticism I've got. The wire's completely in the wrong place. I mean, the only problem, like I said before, is first-person shooters. You do need a second stick, ideally. You can play without it, but ideally you do. And forget this mouse and keyboard. That's not how I play. So I play with a controller.
That's fine. It's fine to talk about, Caleb.
But yeah, I mean, and the other criticism is the wire. I mean, apart from that, yeah, it's fine.
One thing that I like about the Dreamcast controller, in opposition to older controllers, is that a lot of the older controllers are pretty small, and you really can't wrap your hands around an NES controller or SNES. But with the Dreamcast, there's enough controller there that you can really grab it and control and play the game.
I agree with you.
I agree as well.
When I had my first Dreamcast, contemporary to when it was available, I couldn't afford to buy another official joypad, so I had this, I think it was a Mad Catz one, and it was humongous.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got one as well.
And my friends nicknamed it the dinner plate because it was that big. I'm not using the dinner plate, no way. But I had the official one as well, and one of my friends had another Dreamcast, and he would bring his official joypads. And just like Xander said there, it was the fact that it's just the right size. It's a universal design. It's not like how Microsoft had to release the Controller S with the original Xbox because the stock joypad was too big. It's just the right size for anybody's hands. You can get your hands around it. I think it's the perfect size.
Yeah, and again, I want to make it clear. I love it for the games that I play the most, which is going to be like the games like Soul Calibur, Dead or Alive, and then all the different survival horror games that I play on the Dreamcast. They're great for that. And then for other games, I just use a different controller. I use the arcade sticks for the fighting games and stuff like that. Even something where it's like, it would work really good for Power Stone 2. Actually, if you have the arcade sticks for Power Stone 2, that works out really great as well. So, I love it for certain things. And so I don't want to be misconstrued in saying it's great for everything. Because the great thing about the Dreamcast is that there is going to be a controller that's great for every single game that's released on it. So that's just how I look at it.
Just to sort of conclude then, if the Dreamcast controller isn't the worst controller anyone's ever used, what is?
I know what you're going to say.
What would you say?
I think... well, it's got 9... Well, yeah, it's got quite a few, but it's definitely the Jaguar.
Done. We don't need to talk about it anymore.
Well, let's be honest, it is.
The Jaguar joypad is quite... Sorry,
terrible.
for American listeners, we're talking about the Jaguar, not the Jaguar.
It's quite terrible. The Jaguar.
Listen, Rob, the Jaguar controller is very comfortable, it's very functional, and it's actually a really good joypad. It's just because it's big and looks like a slice of bread. It's fine. The CDI controller is a lot worse.
Welcome to the Dreamcast podcast, sponsored by Jaguar.
The CDI controller
thank you,
terrible.
Caleb. Thank you for that endorsement. And also the Amiga CD32 controller is horrific. I don't know if you American guys have played on one of those, but imagine a Sega Mega Drive stroke Genesis controller, but turned upside down, so the points were facing upwards. That's what an Amiga CD32 joypad looks like, and it's just awful.
That's it. I mean, I personally, it's a square. You can't play with a square.
Are we all
ridiculous?
Are we all in agreement?
The controller's square shaped. You can't play with it.
Are we all in agreement that the joypad is nowhere near as bad as everybody says it is?
No.
Yes.
We are in agreement.
We're in agreement.
It's got its flaws, but yeah, it's good. But going on to, we've had the worst. We said the best controllers. I think personally, mine. I like the GameCube. It feels beautiful, and
I love the GameCube controller too. It's like that thing. It seems like it was made for my hands.
It's beautiful.
It's just so good.
Very underrated.
And the Xbox 360 controller, which I think is probably the best controller that's ever been released. Yes. Nah. You know nothing. No.
You know what is the best controller? And I'm not lying here. It is the Tron controller that was officially released for the Tron game for the Xbox 360. The Tron controller is amazing. I love that thing. I've got one of the very rare ones where there's only 200 made, and then I have one of the less rare ones that I use for all my PC gaming because it's a plug-in one. It's not wireless, but the Tron controller for the Xbox 360, and I forget the name of the company. It's like P something. But like that's an amazing controller, and it lights up blue too.
Yeah, is that only available in the States, or was it released over here?
States only, I believe.
Yeah, because I was looking on Amazon, it's $93.
Yeah, that's not for the rare one either. I think the rare one's even more.
It looks nice.
Again, I'm a man of singular tastes, so I mean, don't assume that everybody's going to agree with my opinions. I know what's good for Caleb. I don't know what's good for everybody else.
Cool. Okay, let's move on, guys. I just wanted to interject here with a little bit of self-promotion. The Dreamcast Junkyard, we've got a competition going on at the moment, which is our 10th anniversary, and we have some Dreamcast Collection limited edition vinyl LPs to give away. We've got 3 of them. Yeah, we've got 3 of them. We're going to give them away one at a time. So we've got the first part of the competition going on as we speak, and we'll be announcing the winner on the 21st of June 2015. So you've
not far away.
Yeah, so by the time this podcast goes up, you've got about a week or so to get involved, and basically all we're doing is asking you to tell us why the Dreamcast means so much to you. We've got some pretty good entries so far. They've all been written like essay type entries, but we're open to like a picture or a YouTube video or even just
video,
anything,
even a song. or a poem or even a dance view is
Get
be
some
creative.
markers out and do a dance for us.
Yeah, I'll do a Bez style.
I wonder if many people like who are listening in America or elsewhere will know who Bez is.
Happy Mondays, if nobody knows. Look it up on YouTube, Bez Happy Mondays.
But you can enter by basically looking at the 10th anniversary tab on the right-hand side of the main Dreamcast Junkyard website, which is at www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk, and send your entries in. So it's a bit of a shameless self-promotion, and I think we'll move on now to the next section.
Yes, we want to talk about an old game and see if it's still relevant and playable today. So today we'll be looking at the game Choo Choo Rocket, which GameSpot gave it 8.2 out of 10, stating, Sonic Team has created a party experience for the ages. Plug even your most recalcitrant non-gaming friends in front of this game and they'll be sucked into the Choo Choo verse. So the question is, does the game still stand up? And what would we rate it?
Well, I recently played this when I went to Play Expo, and after the event, me and 3 others from the Retro Collect crew sat down and we played it, and it's still a fantastic game, especially if you can't play it on your own, you got to play it with friends, especially with 4 players. And for those who don't know anything about Choo Choo Rocket, you basically you collect mice, and by diverting them with using the buttons, each button creates an arrow, doesn't it? And you have to get them in your trap and divert them away from your competitors. It's still hugely playable and so much fun as well.
I would say it's one of the best party games I've ever played. With 4 players, it's just so much fun. Because it's not even the fact that it's so simple, but there's so much tactic. Like, it's so tactically involving. Not only are you trying to get mice into your rocket, but you're trying to divert them away from your opponents. And not only that, when the cats attack, you're trying to then divert the cats into your opponent's rocket to try and decimate the amount of mice they've got. And it's just so fun. It's frantic as hell. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on at the screen. You can't. There's a lot of luck involved. Let's be honest. But it is. It's just 1 minute you can go from winning, but next second you're in last place.
That's it. Yeah,
it's crazy.
You go from such a position of strength, and then I forget what the mechanism is when you get the sort of the spinning wheel, the random spinning wheel suddenly pops up, and it sort of blazes round, and then suddenly it'll be like mouse madness, and they're like,
and you're in complete trouble. it's
crazy.
But the GameSpot gave it at 8.2. I mean, to this day it's got to be 8, 9. It's up there as well.
I will say though, I mean, even though it is marketed as a predominantly a multiplayer game, and obviously certainly in the UK it was marketed as a way of, here's a game that you can play online. The first one that you play sort of online competitively, I believe, with people over the dial-up internet that me and Rob discussed a few episodes ago. But that said, you've got a lot of one-player game there as well, and it was released on other systems which don't really have the infrastructure to play online. So I've got the Game Boy Advance version of Choo Choo Rocket, and as a one-player puzzle game, it's actually really engaging and thoroughly enjoy it. Even just sitting there on my Game Boy Advance playing Choo Choo Rocket. There's nobody else with me.
Definitely.
Yeah. But the fun is definitely in the 4-player, especially when you sat with 3 mates and you're like, yeah, I'm winning, and then they're laughing at you 2 seconds later because you were in last place. Yeah.
It's one of those games that I see as like, first of all, when I first became familiar with Choo Choo Rocket, I felt a bit like you just said, Tom, that it was sort of I felt very cynical towards it, because I was like, look how basic this game is, and it's obviously this basic because they were trying to get it so they could get it online, basically, and anything more complex they would have really struggled at the time to achieve. But from such a when you watch it, you think, oh, this is very simple. You just divert the mice into here. You stop the cats doing this, and that's basically the mechanics. But as soon as you actually play it, you suddenly realise that it's a lot more hectic than it looks, and it's a lot more complicated. So there's sort of a hidden depth to it.
I think one of the things that's overlooked with the whole experience, as well as the music, it does have quite as soon as you get like a mouse attack, and there's just like millions of mice coming, and the music speeds up. But then you also get that weird, sort of horrible, like nightmarish music when you get like the cats all come out, and it's just like, oh no, there's going to be like everyone's going to end up with 0 mice basically in the rocket because we're all trying to put as many cats as we can into each other's rocket. And it's just, it's just frantic fun. I love it. It's great stuff.
It seems like I've never actually played it myself, but I've seen a playthrough, and it looks like it could be a viable mobile game. Like, I don't know if there is one out there, but that looks like something that could definitely be a mobile game.
You're right, actually. That's a good thought, because you could only, I think you can only, because you lay down the arrows on the board, but you could only lay down a number. Was it 3 or 5? I forget. But you
can only have 4 at once, couldn't you? Because 4. You had 1 arrow for each of the different face buttons on the Dreamcast joypad. So you had up, down, left, and right.
Yes, that's it. So that would work actually, because you could just tap on your tablet, couldn't you? Tap, 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 tap. I don't know how.
I think there is actually a version for tablets and mobiles.
They might have to slow it. Yeah, they might have to slow it down a little bit because it would be a little bit frantic without the controller.
Yeah.
You'd be like just going. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I'm just looking at ports now. Obviously, there's a Game Boy Advance version. Apparently, there's one for the Atari ST. There's a port for the Atari ST, and there's a version for Apple iOS. So yeah.
Okay.
There's various clones
There's
for
nothing
Android.
I'm just looking on Windows Phone now. There's nothing on Windows Phone.
It's really interesting. I mean, Sonic Team did a great job with this because we've all heard the same story again and again about the mice going into the rockets. It's a story that's been told time and time again. It's just amazing that they came up with the gameplay to really make something new out of it.
Sure.
I'll tell a lie. There is a version on the Windows Phone. I'm just going to download it now, and then I'll tell you exactly what it's like.
What's an official version of Choo Choo Rocket?
No, it's not. It's been made. It's not made by Sega, so no, it's an unofficial. Yeah. It looks like
right, so it's like a clone.
It looks like the
type
proper
thing,
Choo Choo Rocket, though. Yeah.
So I think again we're all in agreement that Choo Choo Rocket did thoroughly deserve the 8.2 rating that it was given.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a bit low, to be fair.
Certainly, it's a party game. I mean, I'd much rather play something like Choo Choo Rocket in a party environment than, say, Sonic Shuffle or the continued campaign against Sonic Shuffle.
I'd rather serve jury duty for a month than play Sonic Shuffle.
And on that bombshell.
Yes.
I think we should move on. So, I think that's I think we've come to the end of the episode. You've been listening to the Dreamcast Junkyard Dream Pod. Again, thank you for listening. I've been Tom. Let's go around the table. We've got Rob. Rob, you're on Twitter at
Nicholas J.
And Gaz, you are on Twitter at
Lost Ruin, all one word.
Xander, you are on Twitter at
Random Xander MEE, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Caleb, you are just kind of floating around the.
I tweeted Adam Kohurulik. Yeah, I tweeted him and he replied back, and I tweeted Colt Cabana, the wrestler, and that's it's interesting, but I don't still care about Twitter. It just seems. If anybody needs to talk to me to correct my many mistakes as an American Dreamcaster, please do on our official Dreamcast site on the Dreamcast Junkyard on Facebook.
Excellent. You can find me on Twitter at Tom Lee C, and obviously you can look at the Dreamcast Junkyard main page. It's www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. We've got our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Dreamcast Junkyard. We have a group, which is Groups, the Dreamcast Junkyard. That's on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. We've got an official Twitter account for the Junkyard, but we don't really check it very often. So if we don't reply, that's why. That's at Sega Junkyard. And thank you very much for listening. Be sure to enter the competition. We need some more entries. And that's us. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That shadow changed video games forever. They were no longer known as games. They were now dreams. Dreams that came true. 1999, the world is living in its prime, and we got Disney Afternoon Show, Mecto Coolers, and Boku. I got Juicebox. Skating around the town with my new Jenkos falling down. I rip a power slide to stop in front of Funko Land Game Shop. Whoa! Stop, wait, guys, stop. What is
that little gray box? Oh, that's just Sega's masterpiece, the Dreamcast 128-bit beast. 2001, the Dreamcast done, that's it, no more, the thing's deceased. No, this simply can't be true. The Dreamcast is through. There must be a 2. Ooh, Sega, I know I can count on you to follow through. Please tell me, do you know if dreams come true? Because if they do, the Dreamcast 2 is true. Do you know if dreams come true? Cause if they do, there's a Dreamcast 2. Do you know if dreams come true? Because if they do, the Dreamcast 2 is true. Do you know if dreams come true? Cause if they do, there's a Dreamcast 2. How could it end when it barely began? Just take it from me, Sega's the loyalist fan. The DC2 will be strong in demand. With a million big graphics, it'll cost $1,000. Been searching for this thing all across the land. Asked Olivia Munn, but she didn't understand. Well, I know the truth, Sega's got a plan. They're secretly developing a new She-Man, plus Power Stone 3 and a second Gundam. They'll fix that laser and a crazy loud fan. Available for Christmas in 2010. Do you know if dreams come true? Because if they do, the Dreamcast 2 is true. Do you know if dreams come true? Cause if they do, there's a Dreamcast 2. Go! Do you know if dreams come true? Because if they do, the Dreamcast 2 is true. Do you know if dreams come true? Cause if they do, there's a Dreamcast 2. Do you know if dreams come true? Because if they do, the Dreamcast 2 is true. Do you know if dreams come true? Cause if they do, there's a Dreamcast 2.
That was Keith Apicary, his song Dreamcast 2. You can find that by going to keithapicary.bandcamp.com. This is just a quick ending message just to ask that if you did enjoy the podcast, to consider giving us a review on iTunes just to help us get more exposure. That'd be great. Thank you. Bye.